We want our students and families to know that our entire staff is ready to welcome our students back and primed and positioned to help them achieve their goals this year.
The first day is the absolute best. It's what we have worked so hard for all summer. We have been preparing and just anxious for the students to come back. We're ready for them to get going and get closer to meeting their goals and being successful here. So we as a staff are very excited on the first day.
I want to thank everyone for coming to the 2024-25 school year. Welcome to the newly updated Scoutwood. I'm so excited to share all of our updates with you guys, and I can't thank everybody who's worked so hard to get it done. We had 90 days over the summer to get this done, and they did an amazing job.
Hi, I'm Ansley Stevenson, Capital Improvements Project Manager, and we're back at Mifflin High School. Teachers have returned today, and we're here amidst the hustle and bustle of teachers unpacking and setting up their rooms. We wanted to take you on a guided tour one last time to see the finished product, so come along. We're here in the new Student Support Services area of Mifflin High School. Before, these spaces were scattered throughout the building, and now students and counselors have a private space to access all of those student support services. We're sitting here in one of our 3 new extended learning areas at Mifflin High School. They're all furnished slightly differently to allow a different posture for students and staffs. Some of them are more focused around technology, some of them are more focused around lounge and conversation to allow students and teachers to pick the space that suits their needs for the day. We're standing in one of our completely refreshed classrooms here at Mifflin High School. Throughout, you'll see new flooring, new ceilings, new lighting, our new sound system that allows for an even sound distribution throughout the whole classroom, and furniture that was customized for each teacher to suit their needs. Looking at the refreshed auditorium space, you'll see new seating, new theater curtains, new lighting and sound system to support our next big production here at Mifflin High School. Here in the relocated weight room at Mifflin High School, we have combined the weight room and the health classroom. So you'll see state-of-the-art, new weight equipment combined with flexible furnishings to allow us to use this space for after-school events, as well as after-school weight and strength training. Moving into the art and construction technology spaces, which were both refreshed here, you can see in the art room, we've got completely new seating for 72 students, which supports both of our art classes. We've added a lot of built-in cabinets to support all of those art materials needed to do all of the different studio functions for our high school art students. Looking at our construction technology space, you'll see a brand new dust collection around the perimeter. This will allow us to keep a safe, clean environment to teach our students the critical skills to become part of our modern construction technology world. At this project, we left no stone unturned. As you walk through the building, you will see upgrades throughout. Our hallways have been completely painted, upgrading with new ceilings and new lighting. Our cafeteria space has been refreshed, all new furniture, all new flooring, and all new lighting. Our brand new gymnasium space has been equipped with everything we need for the next big game. We have new bleachers, new basketball hoops, and a completely refinished gymnasium floor. When you walked through Mifflin High School last school year, it was a dark, outdated, uninspiring space for our young learners. When you walk through this year, you'll see a bright, refreshed space that allows our students to dream big and achieve more this school year and many school years to come.
I hope that the students feel a sense of accomplishment. I hope they feel proud about what they created. I hope they feel like they, really can do anything.
I want to dance for the rest of my life because I've been doing it up until now, so I still want to do it forever.
You taught me this in Dance 1, that dance is like a universal language.
And over time, I've really realized that my role here has become not necessarily teaching them about the art form of dance, but using dance as a way to understand yourself in the world. And when you understand yourself, then you are able to do more.
So I can say personally, the connection you have with your students and that you want them to do better. You want them to push. You don't want them to fall under any category. You want them to push forward, and her sense of being a community. I'm about to cry. You can really see that. You want to be a community, and you push for that. You push for your students so they can have a community. I told you dance ensemble is family. So you push for that. You push for the family. You push for us being together, even though times may be hard, the being there, present in time and space, was really something that I appreciate.
Life is gonna go back to normal, and what you gonna do when you look back from 4 years in high school and you didn't still push yourself?
Enjoy the moments, enjoy what you have, be here, be grateful for what you have, because we couldn't have done this, we didn't have to do this, or we probably wouldn't be able to do this.
COVID kind of makes you do things you don't want to do, or forces you outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Be open, be different. It's okay to not just think everything's gonna be one way. It's okay to change.
I grow every day, so it's not like I'm just stuck in one position. I've learned a lot about myself through this whole experience.
It takes confidence to be a leader, to be able to step out in front of people and say, this is the way that this should be done. Because you have to be able to take criticism from people that doing that as well, because everyone's looking to you.
If you ask for things, if you are open and you're willing to put yourself out there just a little bit, that things will come to you.
Challenges do not change who you are. They reveal who you are. And what this has revealed is that during this time of great challenge, creativity still happens. Creativity still emerges. And that has been a very cool thing. So this challenge has not changed who we are, it's just revealed who we are.
Hi, I'm Alex Trevino, Director of Capital Improvements, and we're here at Woodward Park Middle School today to highlight the HVAC improvements we're making at this facility and across the district this summer. So this summer's work is focused on our middle school and high school auditoriums and gymnasiums. Here at Woodward Park, there's brand new air conditioning going into the gymnasium, and then we are replacing the unit that was already in the auditorium because it was quite old. And so while we were able to improve air conditioning in our traditional classrooms before, we had not been able to make those improvements at the gyms and the auditoriums. And so recognizing that they are very much classrooms as well, and part of our Students' Day, we're really pleased to be able to make those improvements as well this summer. So the auditoriums and the gymnasiums didn't get the improvements before, mostly out of budget concerns. So we were really focused on our traditional classrooms and getting air conditioning upgrades there. So we are really proud that we're 1 full year ahead of the commitment to get those spaces air conditioned, and at the end of this summer, we'll have every classroom, including our gymnasiums and our auditoriums, air conditioned for the very first time. So one of the improvements we've been able to make as a result of our HVAC investments is to add what we call DDC, or direct digital control, over every single unit controlling every single space. So every single classroom, and in fact every common space, is going to have a thermostat. That's an improvement that we've made across the system, and so it helps not only regulate the temperature in each space, it also allows our central maintenance team to see problems as they're happening.
The record last year was 3-10 because we only have 5 players, and the record this year is 7-9.
We was gonna make a team at Lynn McKinley if we had a coach or if we didn't, and we're having people come to our games to come watch us play.
Share the ball a little bit more now, and I actually see the team as like a sisterhood.
To go into an actual program that does have those type of losses, you feel like there's no expectation. And I've seen from previous games that I had looked at.
Good evening, everyone. Today is May 14th, and I am calling the Equitable and Transparent Resource Management Committee to order. Will you please call the roll?
Ms. Adair?
Present.
Ms. Ingalls?
Present.
Ms. Reyes?
Here.
Mr. Majea?
Present.
Ms. Burrell?
Present.
And Mr. Davis?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Our agenda this evening, we will approve the minutes, and then we have 4 items on our committee operations agenda. We are going to be reviewing demolitions. We're going to have a review of the 5-year forecast. We are going to talk about some funding options regarding West Broad Street Elementary School. And we will have a presentation, getting some feedback, guys. A presentation regarding the cost of latchkey. So we have a very busy agenda this evening. So is there a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Ingalls?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Majea?
Yes.
Ms. Burrell?
Yes.
And Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Upchurch. Motion carries. Now, who made the motion?
I made the motion, and I seconded. Ms. Burrell, second.
Thank you.
All right. So attached to your agenda and I believe in your packet of information, yes, are our meeting minutes from March 12th of 2025. Is there a motion to approve our meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any changes or corrections? Okay. Seeing none and without objection, we will approve our minutes. Okay, we're going to jump right in to our committee operations agenda. We are going to go ahead and start in the area of integrated real estate, capital, and development planning. And we are going to have a review and recommendation of potential demolitions for board consideration. Just remember, committee, this is actually something that we did before. And so this is just the next round of buildings that we are going to look at. And so these ones, you know, there's a whole process, and I don't know if you're going to give us a quick update, Alex and Maurice, on like the ones we already approved. Okay, they're saying yes, so we kind of know. So this is just a regular kind of a process. So I'll turn it over to our COO, Maurice Woods, and Alex Trevino for this presentation. Thank you.
So good evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chair Adair. I'm going to turn it over to Alex Trevino, who's going to walk us through the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So you may remember, I forget exactly how many months ago it was when we did the first presentation for demolitions, when it was the Franklin Annex, which is adjacent to the Girls Prep Middle School, Old Wedgwood Middle School, which is across the street from Eakin, and then Deschler. This is essentially a mirror to that. It's just going to bring forward some additional sites to consider for demolitions. So I always like to start with just kind of level setting slide of where we stand big picture from a facility standpoint. So we're nearly 10 million square feet under roof. A little over 1,500 acres across our entire portfolio. And then on the right side, you'll see those list of sites that are unused and vacant. Do just want to point out that Pinecrest is land only, so there's not a building there. I think the previous building was demolished maybe about 15 years ago. And then of the vacant structures on active sites, the board has already approved demolitions again for Franklin Annex, Old Wedgwood Middle School, and Deschler Elementary School. And then just to give you some context, so you'll see on the left-hand side, we report out 354,000 square feet of vacant structure. Those 3 sites that are already approved are about 159,000 square feet. So I don't do math in my head well, but maybe 40% of that quantity is already approved for demolition and will come offline here over the next couple months. So those 3 structures already approved for demolition have already been abated, or abatement work is being finalized as we speak. Demolitions will start roughly the end of this month. So those structures will start to come down in very rapid succession as we head into the summer months. So now we'll move into the sites that are being recommended to move forward into demolition. So those consist of the 4 sites you see listed here. I'm not going to read these for you, but we're going to get into details on each of these 4 sites as we move through the presentation. So the first site is Monroe Middle School. This building was closed by the district in 2014 and has been vacant ever since. You'll see the address there if you're familiar with kind of the downtown interchange between I-71 and 670. This is kind of right in that southeast corner of that intersection. Kind of right under the block there that has the stats is the old Sawyer Towers. Our structure is a little over 71,000 square feet. It's 3 levels, and you see it's a significant parcel of land there that has almost looks like an oval walking track just to the north of it. So here's a picture from the street side. This is what was the main entry to this building. You can maybe just pick up that it's largely been boarded up, so we have tremendous difficulty with trespassers and intrusion, so many of our ground level windows have been boarded up to try to prevent that. You'll see the same on the back side of the facility, if this will advance for me. There we go, there's the back side. You can see the high-rise residential structures in the background. So now we get into the not so pretty part. So this is what's going on inside this building. So in this particular area, you're seeing the student lockers in the background, but because of the amount of damage we've had inside this building, we also have lots of airborne contamination. So we do not recommend anybody enter this site, including law enforcement, without PPE, just because of the respiratory risks. You can see that all the display cases have been shattered. You can see the floor is in, it's not really actually coming up here, but it's coming pretty close to it because of water sitting on the floor. You can kind of see the staining. These are the auditorium seats, and what you see on those seats is exactly what it looks like. It's mold. And heavy water intrusion in these buildings should come as no surprise. It's been vacant for 11 years. And then that'll take us to the next site, which is the Linmore Education Center. So do want to point out at this site, so the yellow arrow is pointing to the actual vacant structure. The blue arrow is pointing to a separate standalone building that's leased to the Metropolitan Libraries right now. So we're not recommending that we have any action on that particular building. And then at the north end of the site, so just below where it says 26th Avenue and Hamilton Avenue, is our Hamilton STEM Elementary School, which was just renovated 2 summers ago. So the only recommendation is where the yellow arrow is, which is the actual Linmore Middle School building. This site also houses our baseball and softball fields for Lyndon McKinley, so that's what you see immediately to the west of the Hamilton STEM building. This building closed as a traditional school back in 2007. It was then repurposed as the Global Academy until that program was relocated to the Brookhaven High School site. The whole facility has most recently been leased out to Columbus Rexon Park through 2021, but it's basically been empty since. The district does use it for some limited storage. This is the front parking lot. This is the back parking lot and the back side of the facility. This is the boiler room, and we are currently sitting underwater because we have lost power to the sump pumps. So you can see what's happened with our boilers and our ability to keep this building heated. We're currently non-operational. This is the old wood shop. So again, you can see lots of damage. This particular space has a wood floor that you might be familiar with from those old shop spaces, and it has completely failed due to water on the floor as well. This is one of the classrooms where the roof has totally failed, and as a result, the ceiling roof structure is beginning to fail as well. So we did have a company come in and shore it up just to make sure that it did not collapse. But the roof is well beyond its useful life, and again, at this point, we can't stop water intrusion. It shows more from the inside than the outside, but again, windows that have been busted out, and as a result, the building is boarded up to try to prevent further unauthorized entry. So our third site is Beery Middle School. And again, just want to give you the context. So the structure that's highlighted with the yellow arrow is the Beery Middle School building. Immediately below the block that has the address and the gross square footage is where Marion Franklin High School is. So this is one of the sites that is adjacent to an active school site. Beery Middle School was closed in 2010. The building overall has been vacant ever since, with the exception that Columbus Metropolitan Library has had a fairly long-term lease on what was our library, which they have then renovated since to operate as their branch library. They made the decision several years ago, based on the success of their program, to build their own facility, and they are anticipating completion of that later this year. And so as soon as their new facility opens, they will be transitioning out of this space, and at that time, we expect this building will fully become vacant. And that's why we're bringing it forward at this time. This is the presentation from the front entrance and the front parking lot. The building sits back just a little bit from the road. Here is what's going on inside of the gymnasium. I believe all that white powder you see on the floor. So unfortunately, we do again have many issues with break-ins and oftentimes setting off fire extinguishers. So you're going to see this white residue in many of the buildings that are vacant. This is what happens when a building has essentially not been maintained for 15 years. So we're seeing so much water intrusion that the ceiling has completely collapsed because we're seeing water inside the building every time it's raining. Again, what you think you see in that picture is exactly what you're seeing. So there's mold all over the place. So even those ceiling tiles that have not fallen down are heavily contaminated with mold. And then that takes us to the final site, which is Beaumont Elementary School. I'll be honest, even when I came to the district, we're like, what's Beaumont? So this building operated as the Columbus Spanish Immersion Academy for many years. It was originally operated as Beaumont Elementary School, which closed, I don't know, many years ago, but we still like to refer to it that way. So this building has been vacant since 2016 when the new Spanish Immersion Academy opened, although it was leased by Helping Hands Bridgeway Academy while they built their new building. So they vacated in 2021 and the building has been completely vacant ever since. There is the front entrance to the facility. Here's the rear side of the building. You can just start to see some of the plywood showing up again because we're having the exact same issues where we're having lots of unauthorized entry. And if it's not evident from the outside, it's certainly very evident from the inside. So when Bridgeway vacated, they left a fair amount of furnishings behind which have remained in the building, and you can see lots of damage as a result of that unauthorized entry. And then much like the other buildings, the roofs are probably the very first thing that fail. And so we're seeing lots of water intrusion into the building, which is not only damaging the ceilings, it's also damaging the floors as that water sits there and there's nobody there to clean it up. And again, you can see a whole section of the building that's actually flooded. We're seeing so much water inside of it right now. And that concludes the presentation, and I'll happily take any questions you'll have now.
Before we get to questions, I do want to mention that some of the things that we saw coming out of the budget bill concerning our facilities and particularly demolitions, just want to highlight. So the governor's proposal had a provision in there about the ability to demolition property that is on, or buildings that are on school sites, not adjacent to school sites. So school buildings that are kind of standalone, right? Because we had already done some demos before. They are touching our school properties, and Alex mentioned a couple of those in this packet as well. And so it's a proposal that basically we were unable to demo things like this, these type of buildings that are really just hazardous to our community, and instead put them up for sale if they are over $10,000. And so that did not get advanced in the House budget, but we are understanding and kind of anticipating that this show up again at some point. So it is really important that we as a community understand. I mean, I'm heartbroken, to be honest with you, of the condition of these buildings, and you know, understanding that they have sat in our communities like this for so many years, and the ability to not be able to get rid of them and use the land and use the assets in a way that's best interest for our current students in our community is something that is very troubling. So I want to say that out loud. We bring these forward because we had already started this cadence. So this is not in response to that, but it is something to be mindful of as we do this in the future. And so that is why, you know, again, we're looking at these. We want to have this cadence about just making sure that we are getting buildings like this just out of inventory so that we can really use assets. Team, do you want to say anything? Treasurer, do you want to say anything, Mr. Woods, about any of that?
Yeah, I think you raised some excellent points. There's a lot of risk, not just with these facilities we've talked about tonight, but with respect to the incoming budget bill at the state. We have heard from some of our state reps and our senators that there will be language around forced sales. I don't, unfortunately, at this time know what that means, but I would anticipate, to Board Member Adair's point, that this language is going to continue to be floated out there, if not put into this budget, perhaps a reconciliation bill, et cetera. There is a lot of angst about forcing sales and handing facilities over to charter non-pubs, community schools, et cetera. What concerns me is the language around those. Are we going to be able to maximize the value for the district for these properties if there's a forced sale? We don't yet know. The governor's budget was not friendly to us in that respect. So we continue to watch and see. I mean, we're going to know this by the end of June, but it is something we need to note and be aware of and work to try to mitigate as best we can.
I think the only thing that I will add is, you know, you mentioned the word cadence. I just think it's important for us to be proactive and continue to act and not be paralyzed and waiting for decisions to be made. I just think we have to continue to move forward. I just wanted to add that comment.
Thank you. And sorry, I misspoke. I was just reminded. It's in the House version. It wasn't in the governor's, so it's in the House version right now. So we don't know what the Senate is going to do, but it is in their version. And I just want to highlight again that this idea around forced sale, it really is taking our community's asset away from us, and the ability to then future plan for the needs of our district and our kids and what we need, by requiring us to lose the land. And so it is very troubling and something we are definitely paying attention to and advocating against. We don't think that's a good idea. Again, just highlighting that as we start this dialogue to kind of understand the landscape. And you can certainly, committee members, you can ask questions about what I just said as well as the buildings that were presented. So I'll go ahead and open the floor for questions.
So the cost of demolition, will we have to absorb that cost until they make these decisions? And I think it's a good thing that we're doing this, because like I think proactivity in this committee and previous boards have tried to resolve these issues, and they're big issues in the community, every one of these buildings. If you drive around the city, you'll see exactly what was reported. And I think if we put out the positive of the fact that we are going to absorb this demolition in hopes that we can turn it into something and use the facilities that have focus on what they've been used for in the past, like the library, you know, some of those other places, the center behind Linmore that's still active, and they find those areas still thriving, I think it also will help the narrative. But I congratulate the board for making these decisions, for real.
Well, this committee, we're talking about it to make the recommendations, so you guys are doing the hard work right now, right? Other questions, or do we want to answer the cost question?
Yeah, I mean, it's my expectation that the district would absorb the cost of those demolitions, correct?
I would echo that. Chair, I have a question and a comment. The question has to do with the Monroe plot. I know, I think it's my assumption that there's still a good amount of community use with the field, the track part. I don't know if that's authorized or not. I just didn't know if you had anything to speak to about how this demolition would affect that as a community space. I know, cookouts, community events, people are out there a lot.
Yeah, let me go back to the slide real quick.
It's kind of on the north side of it, that track area.
In the short term, I don't know that it would have much impact. I mean, you can kind of see where, and I'm losing the name of the road that kind of runs east-west.
Right.
I would not expect that as part of the demolition, we would touch anything north of there. There's quite a bit of space there between the building and that walking area. Long-term, there'd obviously have to be a discussion about what happens with the property, but in the short term, I don't think it has any significant impact to community use.
And then my second comment, many meetings ago, we had briefly, although not specifically the work of this committee, touched on like memorialization. And I'd like to share some observations from Northeast and Canton, Ohio, where I went to Canton City Schools, and they recently demoed a building and had a great community event, inviting people out. So I would just propose that maybe we offer something with the Community Engagement Committee. Obviously, we won't be entering a lot of these properties, but I just wanted to share that back where I went to high school, the community really received it well, and it was just a big hit. So this is a great way to memorialize and think about what these places mean to. One of my colleagues went to Monroe Middle School, and she talks about it all the time, so just wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, and a good kickoff to conversations about future use. Because we definitely want community activation in that area. I mean, this neighborhood in particular, because the old towers are there that are also coming down, is going to be experiencing a lot of redevelopment, and it's a perfect time to enter into those dialogues with the community to see what kind of assets that we need that can be educationally supported as well. So.
Just to add to that, I'm fully in support of the demolition of these buildings. I think that's important. But a marker with whatever we do next with the land, I don't know what the cost of that would be, so I guess we'd need to investigate that. But to Pedro's point, a recognition of what was there at one point and what that meant to these neighborhoods, especially thinking about the neighborhoods that are already going through so much flux.
Yep. Other questions? Any specific questions about any of the properties? You want to see any of the pictures again? Yes.
So I had two questions really quickly. One, what do we think the cost of demolition per building will be? And then what are we expending resource-wise right now to try to keep the premises secure, keep the building roof from falling in, et cetera?
So I'll take the first one. So I do not have costs on the demolitions right now. We're working on that. I expect we'll have it here in the next couple of weeks, particularly for the bigger buildings. So take Beaumont out of the equation because that's the smallest of the three by far. I'm expecting that each of these demolitions is well north of $1 million. They're large and fairly sprawling buildings. Second question was kind of like around ongoing costs, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. So we're having to like put in roof repairs, we're having to like board up windows. It sounds like we're having incidents that we have to respond to on the premises.
You want to take that one?
Yeah. So, what we'll do is, depending on the decision of the committee, the next step is for us to usually go back and talk to our buildings and grounds teams to try to get estimates for that. When we brought the last set of demos forward, I will say, I don't want to say there were minimal costs associated with it, but it's not substantial because we're not spending a lot of time going back into those buildings, especially these, because of some of the internal risks that are involved. But that would be a next step that we would do in preparation for coming to the board. We'd have that information for the board.
Let me just, maybe you can talk about, like, right now, I believe that, like, utilities are off in these buildings, right? I don't know if we have active security alarms in these buildings. Right now, as Alex said, emergency services are not responding because of the condition of the buildings. We are obviously not doing any upkeep. Probably what we're doing is mowing the grass because, you know, the outside. So I don't think that there's a lot of investment happening, and that is why they are blighted.
There's some electricity though.
Is there some electricity in?
For security, right?
I don't think security's on.
I
Maybe
can't
on the
speak to the
outside.
security. There could
On
be
the outside.
minimal with some security lights on the
Right.
outside
I
of
was
the
gonna say, yeah.
facilities. I can ask my team to dive into the numbers. It
You
would
can
be-
see it in the picture.
Yes, it would be very immaterial from a cost standpoint, but we could dive in. There are certainly some utilities in various buildings that may be on, but it would be a minimal cost to the district, but still a cost, to your point.
Like, and for the record, I am fully in agreement if I think this is the right move, and celebrating with the community and everything. I was just curious, just thinking about some of the ongoing things that we're having to do for them.
Okay, well, let's take them one by one, because that's what we did last time. So the first property is Monroe Middle School at 474 North Monroe Avenue. Is there a motion to recommend the demolition of this building to the Board of Education?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comment? Please call the roll.
Mr. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Magia?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Ms. Burrell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next is the Linmore Middle School building at 2001 Hamilton Avenue. Is there a recommendation to offer demolition to the Board of Education on this building?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Magia?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Ms. Burrell?
Yes.
The next is the Berry Middle School building, which is at 2740 Lockbourne Road. Is there a motion to recommend demolition of this building?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Magia?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Ms. Burrell?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the last is the Beaumont Elementary School building, which is at 2155 Fenton Street. Is there a motion to recommend demolition of this building?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Dare?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Mr. Magia?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Upchurch?
Yes.
Ms. Burrell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We are recommending all four to the Board of Education. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Woods, Mr. Trevino. And we are going to go ahead and move into item 3.2. We are going to be talking with our treasurer to review the 5-year forecast.
There we go. Well, good evening. This is our semi-annual update. Mr. Davis, a new member to our committee, we're required by state law to update the 5-year forecast in November and May. Provide an update to the board twice a year statutorily. If anything were to change materially, we have the flexibility to do that more frequently. But we are here tonight to look at the May update compared to November and chart our course fiscally moving forward. So welcome. I always like to start with this slide. Before we get to the numbers, it's important for our community, our committee, and our board to remember the 5-year forecast. It's a painting of the future based on what we know today. I have to say there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty. We are in that biennium budget cycle, so we're navigating that. This forecast reflects the changes we're aware of from November to today. That is going to change again in July. We spoke on the budget previously in discussion tonight. There's just a great amount of uncertainty. We've seen quite a deviation from what the governor initially unveiled to the House version, and we're anticipating waiting to see what the Senate unveils as well. None of that is reflected in this forecast this evening. The 5-year forecast, it's viewed as a key management tool, and it should be updated periodically. It's really important to note the numbers only tell a small part of our financial picture. To get the total view, it's important to view the notes and assumptions, and those are on our district website. I'm also happy to provide you with a copy if you so choose. Again, we speak at a high level on the 5-year forecast. The notes and assumptions really dive into the details and lay out the particulars with respect to each individual line. The 5-year forecast, it's a tool for management, our team, to examine future years, the projections, and proactively look at when the challenges are going to arise. It's no secret we, as many school districts in the state of Ohio, are under increasing funding risks, largely attributable to the very item I just spoke of, the state budget with respect to the Fair School Funding Plan. This is going to help us as a team be proactive, and that's the key. We know that's a 5-year forecast. We know within the forecast there's 2 biennium budgets. There's always tremendous uncertainty around those. But again, taking a proactive approach before the storm arrives is always best. Why does it matter? It encourages the Board of Education and our community to engage in long-range planning and discussions. Second, it's a tool for the district's ability to sign what we call the 412 certificate, certifying that funds are available for contracts with our labor partners, large ticket items that we purchase over typically $500,000. We're required to certify this, the superintendent, the treasurer, and the president of the Board of Education. It's a legal requirement. Lastly, it provides a method for the Department of Education and Workforce and the Auditor of State's office to identify districts that may be facing financial challenges and begin to work through their processes of assistance. The forecast is divided into 2 sections, revenue and expenditures. And I'd like to note a lot of discussion around the state budget. Locally, 74.5% of our revenue comes from our local tax base. 22% is from the state of Ohio. We anticipate that's going to continue to climb towards that 80-20 split. And for example, if Governor DeWine's proposal was enacted, we would as a district reach the statutory 10% limit from the state over the biennium budget. So there's a tremendous amount at stake with respect to our funding sources.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. If the governor's budget, were to be enacted, and right now it's not in the House version, but the Senate, we don't know what they'll do. We could fall to the statutory state funding percentage of 10%, a decrease from the already burdensome 20% at the state level. On the expenditure side, it's salaries, wages, purchase services, supplies, and materials. And again, we're in the people business. I say this all of the time. It's no surprise that 84% of our budget is salaries and benefits. Our students rely on bus drivers to get them here, cooks to provide meals, teachers to teach. That's why we're going to be heavy on that. We're in the people business. In our May forecast, our cash balance is positive through fiscal year 28. expenses start to exceed revenue this year. We refer to that as deficit spending. Our cash deficit is projected in fiscal year 29 to be $54.4 million. That's an actual cash deficit. So again, on those opening slides, we talked about this tool as being a proactive approach for management to really dive in, take a look at where we're heading and challenges we may face. That's what we're doing. That's what we're observing now. On a cautionary tone, while that long-range forecast is bleak, there is positive news. We've heard a lot of doom and gloom with respect to state budget, but if the legislatures really place the priority on funding students, this could shift positively. The Fair School Funding Formula, as designed, is a partnership between the state and local districts. We still have an opportunity over the next several weeks to advocate for our students and potentially change the narrative on that cash picture. November compared to May, fiscal year 28 and fiscal year 29, our cash balance increased by $114 million and $157.9 million respectively. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that shift took place in an upcoming slide, but our cash position is stronger in May compared to where we forecast in November, and I will cover that. Summary of changes on the revenue side. This initial part really is not a change. We've maintained the funding formula assumptions from November, as I spoke of. We've left the phase-in of the Fair School Funding Formula at 66.67%, 2/3. That's one of our asks to the state, that they increase that to the full 100%. No change in enrollment. We've seen some growth. That's a positive trend. We hope that continues. Changes now, our state funding formula, it's based on our April number 2 payment. We receive 2 payments from the state of Ohio each month, so we've updated those assumptions to the current payment in April. We did receive $31.1 million additional dollars in our special ed transportation funding, and we'll talk about in a future slide update for the timing of our transportation penalty. I know that's been a massive topic of discussion. It's also a massive expense of dollars that no longer go into the classroom for our students, to the tune of $15 million a year. All other revenue, $21.8 million, has increased just to updated actuals, payroll expenditures, and we've projected that forward. Transportation penalty. We have a $7.5 million increase related to the delay of the penalty expected from this fiscal year delayed to next. And I'll talk about that here at a higher level in just a second. The FY 26 to 29 penalty is projected at $15 million. Again, no change. So I talk about the $7.5 million deferment to FY 26 next fiscal year. Last year, we received a massive penalty right at the end of the fiscal year that forced our state foundation payment to go negative. We could not pay our retirement system obligations, which are direct deposited or EFT'd out of that. We were then forced to do a tremendous amount of accounting work behind the scenes to be able to cut that check and pay our obligation. It was simply a timing issue with respect to the penalty, but another reason the penalty is not necessarily a great thing. So I reached out to the Department of Education and Workforce, trying to be proactive, and said, hey, can you work with us on this penalty? I understand there's timing at play, but it's detrimental for us to get that penalty right at the end of the fiscal year. They agreed to that, so I've signed up for the installment plan, if you will. They're going to spread that out through the summer and fall months so that I don't experience that hit all at once. It doesn't change the amount we're going to get assessed. It's just the timing of it. We still fully anticipate $15 million next year. In addition to that, I asked them, what is our maximum exposure this year? It doesn't mean we will or won't, but there was a lot of angst to us continuing forward with the $15 million inclusion. The department got back with me, and we could, if everything goes wrong for us, and I hope it does not, be assessed $17.5 million. So we can make an argument that this penalty perhaps could be conservative, but I'm comfortable with 15 right now because we haven't seen it rise above the threshold where I need to bump that.
Yeah, I may rely on our transportation wizard here, but it relates back to our charter non-pubs, our community schools, and getting students to school on time, picked up, or any combination thereof. So when we're ruled not in compliance with respect to that, the maximum penalty per day for the district is $160,000. And they assess this penalty based on a number of days. It's frustrating because I would say from my seat, there's a backlog as to when these incidents occur, as to when we're notified, and then when the penalty is assessed. And my colleague today did an excellent job in testimony describing an issue. We were just hit the other day with a massive penalty because we were out of compliance with transportation, and yet we didn't know about this issue until May of '25 that likely occurred, correct me on the month if I'm wrong, back last fall, earlier in the school year. So September, October. So this is the rat race we're facing. These issues come up. They're oftentimes not reported necessarily to the Department of Education, and then when they are, we get assessed with that hit for the penalty. So there's timing at play, there's compliance at play, and then there's the frustrating part of how do we fix this cycle when we don't even know about the issue last fall until May. So again, this is an ongoing challenge for us. We'll navigate it. The frustrating piece is it's dollars out of the classroom. There's no money, let me say this clearly for the community, we are not setting aside a pot of $15 million for this penalty. What we are doing is decreasing our revenue to offset this penalty. There's no rainy day fund for this. It's a straight rip off of revenue. Sure. Excellent question. It is my understanding that this simply goes back to the Department of Education and Workforce and straight into the general revenue fund for the state. I have not been made aware that this, for example, benefits students or education in general. It goes back into the state general revenue fund from everything we've been able to discuss and understand. It does not come back to CCS students in any way, shape, or form. That would be correct. There are some direct payments with non-compliance that go to the parents of these individuals. There's a payment in lieu of, et cetera. That's a different aspect, but this penalty flows right back to the Department of Education and Workforce. Mm-hmm.
So my financial wizard did an exceptional job in explaining that.
Thank you. Correct.
Why it's happening. And I'd love for Mr. Woods to maybe just remind us what those kind of big challenges are in transportation about why it is we are being assessed the penalty, because it's not that we aren't trying. We are, legally obligated to be the transportation provider for every student in this county, regardless of if they go to CCS or not. And so I also want to remind everyone that our families, if our bus is late, like my kids was this week, have no recourse at all in this. This is only for the charter, non-public community schools. So can you just quickly remind us how we get to this situation where we are possibly late for picking up kids?
So it's not a long, drawn-out story. At the end of the day, the root problem or the root cause is really around the driver shortage issue, which is impacting us nationally. So what that does is that puts us in a position when we have to route our students and charter non-public school students, we often have to have longer ride times on the buses and more students on the buses at capacity. And when you do that, it increases the risk that you're going to be late at stops. And then that's where the non-compliance penalty starts to come in. That's probably the easiest way I can explain it. It's not overly complicated. The penalty is just extremely large, and we did get hit with an $8.8 million penalty. We just found out with a couple weeks ago for 55 days that we were in non-compliance. We immediately corrected that. So if we were informed 5 days when we were in non-compliance, we could have immediately corrected it potentially and not been hit with an $8.8 million penalty.
Correct.
But then you wouldn't have to pay.
I'd also like to know, we talk about the $15 million penalty. To Maurice and his team's kudos, we're investing an additional $16 million a year to work to reduce this penalty. So when you look at the push-pull on both of those, a $15 million penalty and then a $16 million investment for transportation, it's an additional $31 million a year, or over $150 million over the life of the forecast.
And I just want to make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying
Sure.
correctly. That is $31 million devoted to something related to transporting children who are not Columbus City Schools children.
That would be correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I
Yep.
thought so. Okay.
Yep. It's an astounding figure.
Go ahead.
I'll just add to, this is a complicated factor for every public school. There are some public schools that choose not to offer transportation to all of their students. However, we know that when a district does not offer transportation, and there are lots of reasons, including the fact that you can get penalties if you are not compliant going into that decision, but we know that when districts do not offer that transportation and there is not that reliable transportation, that we may see that impact attendance, and attendance is a major indicator of performance. And so we as a district have chosen up to this point that is something that is important for our students and our population, and that is something that we have continued to fight for. And so there are a lot of factors, and if we want to see the success of children, not only in Columbus City schools, but across the state, transportation, reliable transportation, and doing things that actually help kids get to the classroom, help kids do the things that they need in order to be successful, this is a major area that we would need that assistance.
And just to add on to that, the state minimum, which Board Member Ingalls is talking about, is school districts are not required to transport high school. And because we choose to, that means that we also then must transport all high school across the anybody that we serve, which includes the charter non-public.
Correct.
We also, and this is, I think, part of the figures, just to make it clear, in order to meet this need, we also contract these services out. And the board is actually going to be considering, I don't remember if it's this meeting or the next, because we just had this upcoming meeting, an increase in order to meet the needs of the charter non-publics through additional contracting support. Your face is, I know, right? But this is the reality of it. And so, we are obligated under the law, just as every other school district is in the state, public school district, to transport all of the students. And just as a reminder, we are one of the largest logistical transportation operations in this country because of this. We run more routes and transport more people than CODA.
So I just want to close on a positive note.
We're getting
We
there.
love our
I do have a question.
transportation
I do have a
Yeah, yeah,
question.
no,
Maybe you want to hold it
They work
closed.
really
'cause
hard.
I-
Transportation team works really hard.
Yes, just a quick comment. One, I do want to recognize the transportation team, but two, I do believe that, with the help of some of the messaging and some of the conversations that we've been having at the state legislature with other charter non-publics, I'm optimistic that we are pursuing opportunities to try to minimize the burden. We have to be part of the solution, but do we have to carry the majority of the burden? And I think there are conversations that are being had now that gives me hope that we may be able to reallocate or shift some funds back into the classroom.
Music to my ears. So on our revenue versus expenditures, again, our cash balance is positive through fiscal year '28. We're deficit spending this year. And I think it's important to note the days cash on hand. There's fiscal year '25 through '29 projected. Industry best, anywhere from 30 to 60-day cash balance on hand. And you can see FY '27, we're really right, starting to dip into the threshold of that. And then obviously in 2029, we fall well below and out of compliance. So we have some work to do fiscally. Again, we have to pay attention to what comes out of the state budget. That's going to have a huge impact on this cash balance in and of itself right here. Ongoing risks, I think it would be fair to say, House Bill 96, especially this concept, you've likely seen it in the news, the 30% cash balance limit. In 2025, we are forecasted to end the year above that, just under 38%. The impact, if we had that 30% cash balance hit, would be $76 million approximately. There's more uncertainty and risk at the federal level with respect to federal programs, our grants, et cetera. Again, no surprise, we're seeing it on the news, but that's another $160 million plus here locally that could be at risk. Upcoming personnel negotiations, I spoke of the increase in our cash balance. I think it's important to highlight here, we made a change from a 2.5% salary increase in our November forecast to a more conservative 1% approach. Again, facing some of those fiscal challenges as we navigate forward, so that obviously increased the amount of cash on hand because the expected increase was smaller. Again, expenses will exceed revenue starting this year. It's important to note we are going to have to begin to take a tough look at our budget, which means reductions, attrition, new revenues, or a combination of both to make sure we are on a path to long-term stability. Again, I always like to highlight here our revenues over or under expenses, and it's very clear from this chart from fiscal year 25 through fiscal year 29, even with the decrease to a 1% base, we are deficit spending each of those fiscal years. I know we had some good discussion throughout. I will now entertain any additional questions.
Go ahead.
One thing that I have been really curious about that I don't see in here, other than you saying that there is 74.5% of the funding that is local.
Mm-hmm.
That is from property taxes, or that is from?
That's our property taxes, that's correct.
So have you all considered what, in a forecast, and obviously not in this one, but in a forecast, the possibility that property taxes will be eliminated in Ohio, and what impact that would have?
That is a great question. I can tell you the impact would be devastating, not just for schools, but police, fire, libraries, local municipalities, townships. Yes, it's on my mind because there is a ballot initiative out there. Growing concern, growing discussion. We have not modeled that yet. I can certainly just zero that line out. It's bad. Very bad.
75% of the budget goes away, yeah.
Doomsday. Very valid question, given the topic, because it's cleared some hurdles to, I believe, potentially get on the ballot. Given the property tax environment we're in, it's concerning. I have seen chatter now. Board President Cole, I believe, was today at the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I caught an article on the Dispatch. It's being universally panned across the board. And I was pleased to see the discussion went to, okay, great, we eliminate property taxes here, which provide essential services to a wide range of folks, not just education. It's an increase in the income tax, which the legislature has been just continually eroding and chipping away at.
For some.
Or a sales tax, yes, correct. Or a sales tax. So then the question becomes, well, gosh, what does a sales tax look like? You know, great, we got rid of property taxes, but now we have a 50% sales tax, or whatever the figure is. Unfortunately, we still have to pave our roads. We still have to educate students. I mean, workforce is education at the end of the day. It's a critical component to our state. So while I recognize people are frustrated with the increasing tax burden, throwing the baby out with the bathwater is a colossal mistake at this point in time. Newton's law, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We still have to fund our local municipalities. So yes, I'm concerned. No, we haven't modeled it. It would be an easy thing to model. It's gone. It would be catastrophic. Okay. But I appreciate that question, so thank you.
Go ahead.
I had a question. I think in our previous, you had mentioned that in our previous FYF, the cash deficit was going to run out, or would begin earlier and then it's extended out later. Could you expand more on that?
Yeah, I sure can, and that's what I tried to highlight in that last slide. So it did. 28 and 29 were actually negative cash before, and we made a decision at the board level to become more conservative on our salary assumption. So we lowered the amount we were forecasting from 2.5% to 1%. And in a previous slide, I don't recall which one, it added approximately $140 million to our overall cash balance. So we're really taking a hard look at our budget and our expenses, aligned with the potential risks coming from the state, and really drawing down to a conservative forecast at this time. There's just a lot of uncertainty, again, at the state and the federal level, and now unfortunately at the local level with property taxation becoming a hot topic as well. So we're just really kind of battening down the hatches for the pending fiscal storm. ESSER's gone. That was a tremendous benefit for school districts. That fiscal cliff, I had those cliff bars in the fall, is here this year. We no longer have those funds to work with. So the decision was made to become a little bit more conservative, and that's why you see that cash balance uptick. Cool.
Treasurer, can you just remind us really quickly what happens if a school district cannot certify or project out to a 5-year forecast? What is the impact?
Yeah, so if we enter, again, there's discussion of going to a 3-year forecast, but there's fiscal caution, watch, and emergency, which leads to ultimately the state takeover we've seen at various districts around the state. So we certainly want to avoid falling into that. And again, we can control that. It's that key tool that we've got some danger out here on the horizon. How do we mitigate it? We have to be able to legally certify our contracts. For example, if I can't certify a contract, the board can't certify a contract, we can't do the contract. There is legal liability for the board president, myself, and the superintendent to the tune of a $10,000 fine, personally payable by each of us. And the Auditor of State's office has taken the approach, and I understand it, it's codified in law. They are going to really heavily scrutinize those 412 certificates moving forward. I'm not implying that anybody has not paid attention to those in previous years anywhere in the state. They are just understanding of the fiscal climate we are entering and being watchdogs for, can you really certify that contract out? So there's a number of things. Local impact with the 412 is contracts, purchases, et cetera. On a grander scale, it's that fiscal watch, caution, emergency that then heads us down a very dangerous path of not controlling our destiny and losing local control to those state fiscal commissions. It's a real thing. Mount Healthy Schools is out there. I know Mansfield City's been through it.
Youngstown.
Yes, this is a very challenging environment at times, but we're working diligently to manage what we can control at this point in time.
And just to close out, the biggest kind of unknown here and the biggest question that we have, I mean, we came back, we were more conservative, we're looking at our costs, we're trying internally to do this better, but the biggest challenge we have right now is what?
State budget and the Fair School Funding Plan. We have a formula that is designed by practitioners to work, and they are eradicating that formula in this budget. The House version gives us some additional dollars, that's true, but at the cost of losing the formula in the long run. And it's that formula that really allows us to continue the education we know we can provide and provide the professionals to do it. That's what's at stake in my mind. Local control, putting more on the backs of our taxpayers at the expense of our students.
Go ahead.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
Remember back when we were talking about our levy, and they said something about that they were going to try to either stop taxes over for homes of residents over 65 or in Social Security.
Excuse me, the homestead exemption.
Yeah.
There's a number of proposals out there on property tax reform. The state appears committed to providing property tax relief. I testified to that today. I think it needs to be targeted, especially for seniors on a fixed income.
Yes.
I believe that personally. There are ways to do this. There are ways to provide property tax relief to those who need it without, dare I say, a knee-jerk reaction. I'll reference House Bill 920 that was created in '76. We've all heard about it. That was a very trying time, fiscally, high inflation, very similar to what we've gone through today. And it sounded good at the time. my cautionary tone is, there's a lot of things being bannered around today that sound good, but 25, 30, 40 years from now, what are those unintended consequences going to be? So yes, homestead exemption.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Oh,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I know I have a lot
You're
of
good.
questions, but, so going back to the busing thing, first, I wanted to applaud trying to proactively take money to fix the problem and get ahead of it. I think that's great. A question I did have, though, as I was listening to you talk, if I get a fine for something that I didn't know I was not in compliance with, I typically try to see if I can get that fine down, since I don't feel like that's necessarily fair to the person receiving the fine, that I wasn't even aware that I was being fined and then I have to pay it. Is there any option for us to go back to the state with fines that they're telling us about 6 months later, 55 days later, and negotiate on that?
unfortunately, no, not that we're aware of. We are proactively working with the legislatures to, I hate to say, plead our case on this example. Mr. Woods raised it today. We're aware, no, we have no relief or recourse at this time to be able to negotiate that. It's a hard codified rule. It's punitive because we can't fix what we don't know, and that's very frustrating.
Okay. All right, we're just gonna stick with you. We're gonna move into our next agenda item.
Thank you.
This is in the area of equitable resourcing and budget asset management, talking about the closure of West Broad, which is conditioned on funding. If you remember, through our facility task force, this was a recommendation to close West Broad, and the board, through its vote, conditioned it on securing funding to build a new building here because it's part of the facility master plan. And so to begin that dialogue, this is just a beginning, we wanted to start a conversation with our treasurer about different options about what the board could do to finance a new elementary school at West Broad. This isn't about what's in it.
That's
This
right.
isn't about what it looks like. I know that's the really exciting part. But the board has to kind of figure out a way to finance it first and decide if that's what we want to do before we can get to the really fun part about creating a new learning community.
Well, thank you for teeing that
Over
up.
to
We'll talk about 4 ways that we can finance West Broad tonight, but these 4 items that we discuss are applicable to any facility that the board should choose to do. So item 1, we call this cash payment, pay-go, pay as we go. And I've set this up for pros, cons on each one. So the pro to paying as we go or cash, there's no debt issued. We use existing cash from the permanent improvement levy to finance through ourselves, and we can still use OFCC. A con, we're going to eat up most of the capacity of our permanent improvement levy. So again, there's pros and cons with this issue. Again, comes down to what the board wants to do with this. Again, some of this is going to relate to the size of the structure, the cost, and everything that goes into it. But it is certainly an option to literally just write the check and be done, if you will.
Can you quickly you said OFCC, just, what is that?
Ohio Facilities Construction Commission. I still go back to OSFC. I'm dating myself. They are the folks that work, the state agency that provide us a facilities master plan, provide co-funding to offset. You'll hear local share, state share. They provide the state share of that, and then we would provide that local share. Either of you want to jump in on that? Do you have anything additional?
You got, the only thing I would add is that the current split is 70-30, so 70% local and 30% state funds.
Thank you. Option 2, tax anticipation note. And you're probably like, what is that? We are legally permitted to issue a was that a question?
On the last question, on the last piece
Yeah.
that Alex discussed, the current split being 70-30, is that true for every school statewide?
No, that's based on local capacity. I don't know when we last updated that with the state. I know there was some discussion when I first got here, but that will shift. It is not the same, and it will shift based on a number of factors, economics, ability to pay, et cetera, and there is a chart.
Yeah, with the exception that the current guidance we have from the state is that because we locked in back in 2002, that we are locked into that 70%, 30% split.
So we are locked then.
Forever.
That's my understanding, correct?
There's been some robust discussion around that. But yes, that is what we have been told.
Who decided that? That's one of those sound good at the time.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I know that's just the agreement we signed at the time, I believe, with the master planning that was taking place, if I'm correct.
Correct, and I'm going to be way out of my wheelhouse, but my understanding is that there was a pretty big change in the way that local wealth and burden factor is
There have been a
calculated.
number of changes